Have you ever wondered if the objects you own also own a piece of you? A fragment of your mind, a sliver of your soul? If so, what happens when you stop watching them but can't stop thinking about them? Some say that in Tokyo, at the old Ningyo-ya shop, there's a doll that knows when you think of it, and when you do, it comes for you. Mizuki Tanaka had always hated dolls. There was something about their glassy eyes, their frozen smiles, that made her feel watched. A psychologist might call it paranoia, a lingering scar from a childhood trauma when her older sister locked her in a closet full of antique dolls for an entire night. Mizuki would agree with that rational explanation, but it didn't ease the discomfort she felt whenever she saw a doll. At 28, working as a restorer of historical artifacts in Tokyo, Mizuki had managed to avoid dolls almost entirely. That is, until the museum she worked for assigned her to catalogue items recovered from an old toy shop called Ningyo-ya, buried during the 1923 earthquake and only recently unearthed during excavations for a new skyscraper. The place was claustrophobic. Blackened wooden beams formed odd angles over piles of warped boxes, crushed by time and humidity. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of mold and something else, something almost metallic like dried blood. Mizuki pulled her protective mask higher, trying to filter out the disturbing odor. Why me, she thought, as her assistant, Kenji, an overly enthusiastic young man, swept the area with a flashlight. They say this place belonged to an artisan who vanished mysteriously before the earthquake, Kenji remarked, his voice echoing uncomfortably in the confined space. He was known for making dolls so lifelike that people swore they moved when no one was looking. A chill ran down Mizuki's spine. That's ridiculous, she snapped, more to herself than to Kenji. Then her eyes landed on a particularly well-preserved box in a corner of the shop. Unlike the others, it looked almost new, as if time had spared it. The lid was slightly ajar, revealing crimson fabric inside. "Kenji, shine the light over there," she said, pointing. When the beam hit the box, Mizuki's heart skipped a beat. Inside lay a porcelain doll with delicate features, dressed in a traditional red and black kimono. But what unnerved her wasn't the exquisite craftsmanship. It was that the doll had her face. Even from a distance, it was undeniable. The same almond-shaped eyes, the same small upturned nose, the same thin lips curved in a barely perceptible smile. It was like looking into a mirror, except this reflection had been crafted over a century ago. "That's impossible," she murmured, her throat tightening. The doll seemed to stare right at her, despite its fixed glass eyes. Kenji stepped closer, curious. "Whoa, it's like your twin, Tanaka-san. What a creepy coincidence." It wasn't a coincidence. It couldn't be. Mizuki felt a buzzing in her ears as she approached the box in a trance. Her hands trembled as she reached for the doll, hesitating before touching it. The porcelain was warm, not lukewarm, as you'd expect in a sealed environment, but warm like human skin. Mizuki yanked her hand back as if burned. That's when she noticed a small scroll tucked into the back of the doll's kimono. With shaking fingers, she unfolded the yellowed paper and read the words written in elegant but uneven calligraphy. "She walks when you think of her. She finds those who seek her. She kills those who fear her." In that moment, Mizuki swore. She saw the doll's fingers twitch just a millimeter, just for a second, but it was enough. Dropping the scroll, she stumbled back, tripping over some debris. "We need to get out of here. Now," she said, her voice barely more than a hoarse whisper. Kenji looked confused. "But we just got here. There are hundreds of artifacts to catalogue." "I'll come back tomorrow with a bigger team," Mizuki lied. "This place, it's not safe." As they hurried out of the ruined shop, Mizuki couldn't shake the image of that doll with her face. And no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, Alone in her small Shinjuku apartment, Mizuki couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the doll's face, her face, with that enigmatic smile, hiding a terrible secret. She took 2 sleeping pills, but even then she only managed to doze fitfully. She was jolted awake by a soft sound from the living room, a barely audible noise like small shuffling steps on the tatami mat. Here's the translation into natural, fluent American English, preserving the eerie, psychological horror of the original while ensuring it flows seamlessly for an American audience. The tone remains immersive, with vivid imagery and a relentless build-up of dread that intensifies the unsettling atmosphere. Mizuki froze in her bed, eyes locked on the ceiling, as the sound of shuffling steps continued. It was like porcelain nails scraping against the tatami mat, a sound that shouldn't exist at this hour in her locked apartment on the 12th floor. "It's just the building's wood settling," she whispered to herself. But her body knew the truth. It wasn't the structure. Something was moving in her living room. Holding her breath, Mizuki slid her hand under the bed, where she kept a self-defense baton. Her heart pounded so hard it felt like it might crack her ribs. The steps paused for a moment, as if whatever was making them was listening. Mizuki squeezed her eyes shut, trying to steady her breathing. "I can't think about her. If I think about her, she moves. If I think about her, she comes." But the harder she tried to push the doll's image from her mind, the more vivid it became. Those eyes, identical to her own. The red kimono that cursed, scroll. The steps resumed closer now. They were coming down the hallway toward her bedroom. With a sudden movement, Mizuki sat up and flicked on the bedside lamp. The light revealed her empty room, the door still closed just as she'd left. Silence settled again, thick and suffocating. "I'm losing it," she muttered, running trembling hands over her face. Her reflection in the dresser mirror showed deep, dark circles and a sickly pallor. Then she noticed. The reflection in the mirror was smiling. It wasn't her nervous, strained smile, but a calm, cruel one, identical to the doll's. Mizuki clapped her hands to her mouth, horrified to find her lips pressed tightly shut. Yet the reflection kept smiling. A scream caught in her throat as Mizuki leaped from the bed and ran for the door. She had to get out of this room, out of this apartment. But when she flung open the bedroom door, she didn't find her apartment's hallway. Instead, she stepped into the dark, dusty interior of Ningyo-ya. "No, this isn't possible," she whispered, stumbling back. The shop seemed larger than she remembered, stretching endlessly into the darkness. The smell of mold was stronger, now mixed with a metallic tang that reminded her of blood. Shelves that had been empty before were now filled with dolls, all with vaguely familiar faces. Like people Mizuki knew, but twisted into expressions of silent terror. At the center of the shop, bathed in a sourceless beam of light, sat the doll with her face perched on a chair far too small for human use. Its red kimono looked more alive, almost pulsating. "You can't stop thinking about me, can you, Mizuki?" The voice was sweet and childlike, but laced with a metallic reverberation that turned Mizuki's stomach. The doll's lips didn't move, but it was speaking. "The more you try to push me away, the stronger I grow in your mind." "You're not real," Mizuki said, pressing herself against the wall. "I'm asleep. This is a nightmare." The doll tilted its head slightly. "If this were a nightmare, you'd be able to wake up. Try." Mizuki dug her nails into her palm, feeling the sharp pain, but nothing changed. The shop remained, the dolls kept watching, and her porcelain doppelganger smiled. "What do you want from me?" Mizuki asked, her voice breaking. "What every doll wants," the creature replied. "To be loved, to be remembered, to be part of someone." The doll rose slowly from the chair, its movements stiff and unnatural. The sound of grinding porcelain accompanied each gesture. It extended a small white hand toward Mizuki. "You already belong to me, Mizuki. From the moment you saw me, from the instant you recognized yourself in me." Mizuki felt something warm trickle from her nose. When she touched it, her fingers came away stained with blood. Not just blood. There were tiny white fragments mixed in. Porcelain. With growing horror, Mizuki saw her skin begin to crack, fine lines spreading across the back of her hand like a shattered vase. Beneath, there was no flesh or bone, only smooth, white material. The doll was now just a few steps away. "Don't be afraid. It doesn't hurt when you accept." "No, stay away from me!" Mizuki screamed, frantically searching for an escape. There was a door at the back of the shop she hadn't noticed before. With one last glance at the advancing doll, she bolted toward it. The shelves seemed to bend as she passed, the dolls leaning as if reaching for her. Some fell, shattering on the floor with a sound disturbingly like breaking bones. Mizuki didn't look back, even as she heard the sound of hundreds of tiny footsteps beginning to follow. Reaching the door, Mizuki threw it open and ran through, only to find herself back in her bedroom. The lamp was still on, the bed unmade as she'd left it. Everything seemed normal, except for one thing. Fragments of white porcelain were scattered across the floor, as if something had been broken. Heart pounding, Mizuki ran to the bathroom and flipped on the light. The mirror showed her normal face, no cracks, no sinister smile. But when she touched her cheek, she felt something hard and smooth beneath the skin. Pressing harder, she heard a faint crack, and a tiny fissure appeared on her cheek's surface. The next morning, Kenji found Mizuki's phone at the excavation site along with some of her tools. She hadn't shown up for work and wasn't answering calls. Worried, he decided to visit her apartment. When he arrived, the door was unlocked. The apartment was spotless, with no signs of a struggle or disturbance. The only thing out of place was a porcelain doll sitting on Mizuki's bed dressed in a red kimono. The doll's face vaguely resembled Mizuki's, but more stylized, more artificial. Beside the doll was a note in Mizuki's handwriting. "She walks when you think of her. Now you're thinking of me." A chill ran up Kenji's spine. As he stared at the doll, he had the terrible feeling that its eyes had shifted, following him. It was just a trick of the light, surely. He picked up the doll, noting how surprisingly heavy it was, and examined it closely. That's when he felt it. The porcelain was warm, like human skin, and in his mind, a soft voice whispered, "Now you can't stop thinking about me, can you? Kenji." When the police arrived at the apartment hours later, they found only Kenji, sitting motionless on the bed, his body beginning to crack like ancient porcelain, muttering over and over, "Don't think about her, don't think about her, don't think about her." The doll was gone. 2 months had passed since Mizuki Tanaka's disappearance and Kenji Saito's psychiatric hospitalization, his mental collapse baffling experts. The case had been shelved, chalked up as another urban mystery in Tokyo. The building under construction, over the ruins of Ningyo-ya, was completed, a sleek 7-story shopping center. On the 5th floor, a new toy store called Childhood Memories drew in kids and nostalgic adults alike. Yumi Kato, 32, the store's manager, was organizing a new shipment of imported dolls when she noticed something odd. Among the boxes was one she didn't recognize. An old, dark wooden box with red detailing, no barcode or supplier label. "Where did you come from?" she murmured, carefully opening it. Inside was an exquisitely crafted porcelain doll, dressed in a red and black kimono. Its face was delicate, with almond-shaped eyes and thin lips curved in a barely perceptible smile. There was something eerily familiar about that face, as if Yumi knew it from somewhere. "It's perfect," she said, placing the doll prominently in the main display window. "This'll be our showcase piece." That night, after closing the store, Yumi couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious doll. Something about it sparked an irresistible curiosity. Maybe she should look it up online. Perhaps it was a rare, valuable piece. In her apartment, as she typed "antique doll red kimono" into the search engine, Yumi heard a soft sound from her front door, like small shuffling steps. Her body froze, gripped by irrational dread. Her mind screamed that it was impossible. She lived on the 15th floor. The door was locked. But the steps continued, now moving down the hallway. Yumi glanced at her computer screen, where dozens of search results displayed news about mysterious disappearances. The most recent was about a restorer named Mizuki Tanaka. The photo showed a woman with delicate features, almond-shaped eyes and thin lips. The doll's face. The steps stopped just outside her bedroom door. Yumi couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then, slowly, the doorknob began to turn. The door opened, revealing not her hallway, but the dark, dusty interior of an old toy shop filled with broken dolls and dust. At its center, beneath an impossible light, stood a familiar figure in a red kimono. "You can't stop thinking about me, can you, Yumi?" The voice was sweet and childlike, but laced with a metallic reverberation that twisted her stomach. Yumi tried to scream but felt something shatter in her throat. She looked at her hands and saw fine cracks spreading across her skin, revealing porcelain whiteness beneath. The last thing Yumi saw before her vision splintered into 1,000 pieces was the doll approaching, now wearing her face, her eyes, her smile. The next morning, childhood memories opened as usual. In the main display window, a new porcelain doll with delicate features drew customers' attention. Beside it, a small card read, "Traditional Japanese doll, one-of-a-kind artisanal piece. They say she moves when you think of her." Throughout the day, dozens of people stopped to admire the doll. Dozens of minds now filled with her image. Dozens of new places for her to visit when night fell. And somewhere in the depths of the city, in the buried ruins of the old Ningyo-ya, something ancient and patient smiled. The cycle continued. It would always continue, as long as there were minds to think, bodies to inhabit, fears to feed it. Because the true curse was never in the doll. The curse was the thought, the idea, the fear that once planted could never be uprooted. And now you're thinking about her too. Have you checked if your doors are really locked tonight? That sound, was it just the house settling or the faint shuffle of porcelain steps in the hallway? Don't look, don't think about her, but it's already too late, isn't it? She's already coming. Did you enjoy our dive into terror today? If you felt that chill down your spine and won't look at dolls the same way again, consider hitting like and subscribing to the channel. Just as the doll feeds on the thoughts we plant in you, our channel grows with your support. And remember, every time you share this video, another mind will be infected by her image. She thanks you.